Marvel has finally released the first official trailer for Avengers Doomsday. We may be a little late to the party, but honestly, that might actually be a good thing. Because after watching this trailer over and over again, something became very clear. Marvel isn't trying to surprise us with action. They're trying to tell us a story before the movie even begins. And there are dozens of details hidden throughout this trailer that completely change how we should look at Avengers Doomsday. So let's break it all down. The very first shot isn't Doctor Doom. It isn't the Avengers. It isn't even the Fantastic Four. Marvel opens the trailer with something much quieter, a weathered sign that reads, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. For longtime Marvel fans, this place needs no introduction. We've spent more than 20 years here through Fox's X-Men films. This school has always represented hope, a safe place for mutants, a home. But today, it feels different, empty, silent, almost like it's waiting for something terrible to happen. That opening alone tells us one very important thing. Marvel isn't treating the Fox universe as a guest appearance anymore. It's officially part of the story. The last major time we visited Xavier's school was in X-Men: Days of Future Past. Logan traveled back to 1973 to prevent the Sentinel future. He succeeded. History changed when he returned to 2024. Jean Grey was alive. Cyclops was alive. Professor X was alive. The nightmare timeline had disappeared. For years, fans wondered what happened next. Now, Marvel is finally answering that question. Thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine, this universe officially became Earth 1005. That movie also confirmed something fans debated for years. Deadpool and the Fox X-Men now share the exact same universe. They're no longer separate continuities. They're one world, and unfortunately, that world is now in danger. Then we hear him, Victor Von Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr., not Tony Stark, not a variant of Iron Man, Dr. Doom. And the very first thing he says immediately sets the tone for the entire movie. Something is coming. Before this day is done, we may face an unthinkable decision. That line isn't just a warning. It's the central theme of Avengers Doomsday. Because if you've read Jonathan Hickman's Time Runs Out, you already know exactly what that impossible decision is. When two universes collide, only one survives. Saving your own world means destroying someone else's. There are no heroes in that situation, only survivors. Another detail I absolutely love is Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. Listen carefully to the way he speaks. He doesn't sound anything like Tony Stark. The confidence, the sarcasm, the fast delivery, it's all gone. Instead, his voice carries a noticeable Eastern European accent. That's exactly what fans expected from Victor Von Doom, because Doom isn't American. He's the ruler of Latveria, a fictional nation located somewhere in Eastern Europe. It's a small detail, but it immediately separates this character from Tony Stark. Marvel clearly wants us to stop thinking about Iron Man and start accepting Dr. Doom as someone completely different. At the same time, Marvel also released the official poster. Doom is standing in front of a painting showing a woman and a child. Most fans immediately assumed this could represent his family. In the comics, Victor's greatest emotional connection has always been his mother, Cynthia Von Doom. Everything he became was driven by his desire to save her soul. But the MCU doesn't have to follow the comics exactly. There's a real possibility Marvel changes Doom's motivation completely. Instead of trying to save his mother, he may be trying to save his wife, his child, or even an entire universe he failed to protect. And personally, I think that would make him an even more interesting villain than Thanos, because Thanos believed he was saving the universe. Dr. Doom might simply be trying to save his own family. Then we see Professor Charles Xavier sitting quietly inside the mansion. At first glance, it looks like a simple, emotional shot. But look outside the window. The sky is turning red. This is the first time Marvel has truly shown us an incursion from the perspective of someone standing on a planet that's about to die. Up until now, incursions have mostly been explained through dialogue. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness introduced the concept. Reed Richards briefly mentioned it, but we never actually witnessed one. Now we finally do. And honestly, it's terrifying. Because an incursion isn't just two universes crossing paths. It's two entire realities occupying the same space, and unless something changes, one of them has to disappear. If you've never read Jonathan Hickman's comics, here's why this matters. During the Time Runs Out storyline, every incursion forced Earth's greatest heroes into an impossible situation. Destroy another Earth, or watch your own universe die. There was never a perfect solution. Every choice created more victims. Every victory came at someone else's expense. That's exactly why Doom calls it an unthinkable decision. He's not exaggerating. He's describing the reality of the multiverse. One detail I really appreciate is how closely Marvel follows the comic visuals. Notice the red sky. Notice how another world slowly appears above the horizon. That's almost identical to the artwork from Hickman's New Avengers. It's not just a random visual effect, it's one of the clearest comic references in the entire trailer, and I don't think that's accidental. Marvel wants comic readers to immediately recognize what's happening, while new audiences simply understand that something unimaginably large is approaching. Now here's where things become even more interesting. According to multiple plot rumors, the opening sequence of Avengers Doomsday may actually take place during one of these incursions. Not on Earth 616, not with the Avengers, but on Earth 10005, the Fox X-Men universe. And if those rumors are true, that would explain why Marvel begins the trailer here instead of with the Avengers. Because this universe becomes the first victim, not the main battlefield, the first casualty. Another rumor claims the very first major conflict involves Wolverine and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. At first, that sounds completely insane. But once you understand how incursions work, it actually starts making sense. Imagine two universes colliding. Neither side fully understands what's happening. Both believe the other universe is responsible. Would they try to work together immediately? Probably not. They'd fight first, ask questions later. And honestly, that's exactly what superheroes usually do. There's another important detail hidden in this sequence. Beast. The last time we saw him, he was studying the multiverse after Monica Rambeau became trapped inside Earth 1005. Marvel didn't show Beast doing research for no reason. That scene now feels like setup, because if Earth 1005 has survived multiple incursions before, then the X-Men may actually know far more about the multiverse than the Avengers do. For once, Earth 66 might not be the most experienced universe in the room. Then, Dr. Doom finally appears, fully suited, standing alone, surrounded by broken statues, twisted metal, and what could easily be the remains of destroyed sentinels. The environment tells a story before anyone says a single word. This isn't a kingdom. This isn't Latveria. This is a battlefield. Something terrible has already happened here. And Doom arrives, not as a spectator, but as someone who already knows exactly what's coming. The red sky behind him reinforces that idea. He's standing in the middle of another incursion, almost as if he's been chasing these events, long before anyone else realized they existed. Then Marvel cuts to one of the biggest reveals in the trailer, the new Avengers headquarters, formerly Stark Tower, now completely transformed into the Watchtower. If you watched Thunderbolts, you probably remember that the building was still under renovation. Now it's finished. The giant Avengers logo is finally in place, which tells us some time has already passed since the events of Thunderbolts. And more importantly, Earth 616 has officially entered a new era. Tony Stark is gone, Steve Rogers is gone, but the Avengers have finally found a new home. The next sequence shifts our attention back to Earth 616. For the first time, we get a proper look at the new Avengers headquarters. And then, the doors open. The Fantastic Four have arrived. Right in front, we see Reed Richards. Behind him, Johnny Storm, Sue Storm, and Ben Grimm. Exactly as several production leaks described months ago. It's always satisfying when a rumor actually turns out to be true. But here's the interesting part. Thor is walking with them. That immediately raises a question. How did Thor meet the Fantastic Four? The trailer never tells us, but based on everything we've seen so far, the answer might already be hiding in plain sight. If you remember the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, the Fantastic Four's spacecraft had already entered Earth 616. This trailer appears to continue directly from that moment. The Fantastic Four arrive. Thor intercepts them, and together, they head straight to Avengers headquarters, which tells us something very important. The Fantastic Four aren't invading Earth 616, they're asking for help. Inside the Watchtower, we finally see Earth's mightiest heroes gathered in one room. Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes, Scott Lang, Thor, the new Avengers, and the Fantastic Four. This should be one of the most exciting moments in the trailer, but instead, there's something strange about it. Something feels missing. Take another look at the room. Notice how much empty space exists between certain characters. Marvel usually frames these group shots very carefully. Every hero has a purpose. Every position matters, which makes that empty area feel intentional. There are already rumors that Marvel digitally removed someone from this scene. And honestly, I think that's very possible, because this isn't the first time they've done it. Remember Infinity War. The trailers removed Hulk entirely. Endgame hid Smart Hulk. No Way Home erased both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Marvel has been misleading audiences through trailers for years. So if they're hiding someone again, it wouldn't be surprising at all. Now, who could that missing character be? The obvious answer is Steve Rogers, but I'm not completely convinced, because Steve already appears later in the trailer. Hiding him here, only to reveal him later, doesn't accomplish much. Personally, I think Marvel is hiding someone even bigger. Someone whose appearance would immediately reveal the direction of the story. Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, or, perhaps, someone we don't even know has been cast yet. Whatever the answer is, I don't believe this room is complete. Not yet. Behind the heroes, another fascinating detail appears, a massive digital display. At first, it just looks like a futuristic presentation, but if you pause the trailer, you'll notice something very familiar. 3 universes, moving toward each other. Exactly like Jonathan Hickman's explanation of an incursion in New Avengers 2-2. This isn't just concept art. Marvel is literally borrowing Hickman's diagrams and bringing them into live action. Look even closer. Each Earth isn't displayed as a solid planet anymore. Instead, they're shown almost like cross-sections. You can actually see the planetary cores, each one highlighted with different colors. Blue, red, yellow. That detail might seem insignificant, but scientifically, it's telling us something terrifying. These worlds aren't just colliding at the surface, they're collapsing, all the way down to their cores. Complete planetary destruction, not just atmospheric damage. Then we notice another important element. A countdown timer. Marvel doesn't zoom in on it, but they want us to know it's there. A countdown changes everything. Because once a timer exists, it means the heroes aren't asking if an incursion will happen. They're asking how much time they have left. And those are 2 very different questions. If the current theories are correct, those 3 universes are likely Earth 616, the main MCU timeline, Earth 1005, home of the Fox X-Men and Deadpool, and Earth 828, the Fantastic Four's universe. 3 worlds, 3 civilizations, 3 different groups of heroes, all moving toward the exact same collision point. And unfortunately, saving one may require sacrificing another. Then Thor breaks the silence. His voice sounds different, older, heavier, almost exhausted. When he speaks about the fallen warriors, I don't think he's talking about one battle. He's remembering every battle. Odin, Frigga, Loki, Heimdall. The Warriors 3, Natasha, Tony, everyone they've already lost. Thor has lived through more tragedies than almost anyone in the MCU. Which is why, when he says they need to stand together, it doesn't sound like another superhero speech. It sounds like someone who has learned exactly what happens when they don't.
Then all of us put together, and they died.
The trailer then takes us somewhere completely unexpected. Talokan, Namor's underwater kingdom. Except, it doesn't look underwater anymore. The ocean is gone, or at least, it's been pushed away. Instead of swimming through water, everyone is standing on what looks like the ocean floor, surrounded by enormous walls of water that seem frozen in place. It's one of the most visually striking shots in the trailer, and it immediately raises one question. What could possibly create something like this? There are a few possibilities. The first, someone with unimaginable power forced the ocean apart. The second, Talokan itself has somehow been lifted above sea level. Or the third, this entire location has been warped by an incursion. Personally, I think the third explanation makes the most sense, because by this point in the trailer, the multiverse is already beginning to collapse. Reality itself is becoming unstable, so seeing impossible environments like this actually fits the story. Then we see Namor sitting on his throne, calm, watching, waiting. His throne room still carries the same Mesoamerican architecture we saw in Wakanda Forever. The massive megalodon jaw, the stone carvings, everything is familiar, but the atmosphere feels completely different. Namor doesn't look like a king preparing for war. He looks like someone forced to defend his entire civilization. Again, moments later, the tension explodes. Shuri arrives as Black Panther. The Dora Milaje prepare for battle. On the opposite side, we see members of the new Avengers alongside the Fantastic Four. At first, it almost looks like another misunderstanding, another superhero fight, but I don't think that's what's happening. Remember, Talokan possesses one of the world's greatest sources of vibranium. If Reed Richards is trying to stop an incursion, he may need resources unlike anything Earth-616 has ever used before. That could explain why the Avengers come here, not to attack Namor, but to ask for something. And if Namor refuses, conflict becomes inevitable, because every minute matters now. One shot I really enjoyed is Ben Grimm shaking hands with M'Baku. It's only a brief moment, but it immediately tells us these heroes aren't strangers for very long. Marvel understands something important. Not every crossover needs a fight. Sometimes, a handshake says far more than a punch ever could. Then, everything changes. The trailer cuts back to the X-Mansion. Thor descends from the sky. Lightning explodes around him, Stormbreaker in hand, walking directly toward Doctor Doom. And, honestly, this feels like one of the biggest confrontations Marvel has ever teased. Think about Thor's journey. In Infinity War, he made one mistake. He didn't aim for the head. That mistake cost half the universe. Ever since then, Thor has carried that failure with him. So when he charges at Doom, he doesn't hesitate. He swings directly toward Doom's head. Marvel clearly wants us to remember Infinity War. This isn't just another attack. It's Thor refusing to repeat history. But then, the impossible happens. Dr. Doom doesn't dodge. He doesn't block. He doesn't counterattack. He simply raises two fingers and stops Stormbreaker. Just like that. No struggle, no effort, nothing. Let that sink in. Stormbreaker overpowered the full force of the Infinity Gauntlet. It cut straight through 6 Infinity Stones. Yet Dr. Doom stops it with 2 fingers. That single shot tells us more about Doom's power than any dialogue ever could. Marvel isn't saying Doom is dangerous. They're saying the rules have changed. If this scene happens exactly as presented, then Doom immediately becomes one of the strongest characters we've ever seen in the MCU. Not because he destroys planets, not because he gives speeches, but because he effortlessly defeats someone we've spent over a decade watching become stronger and stronger. And that's exactly how you introduce a final boss. Not by telling the audience to fear him, but by showing them why even Thor isn't enough. One of the biggest surprises in the trailer isn't Doctor Doom, it's the fact that the Avengers and the X-Men are fighting each other. At first, that doesn't make much sense. These are heroes. Why would they attack one another when the multiverse itself is collapsing? Well, there's actually a very logical explanation. Imagine this. Your universe has already survived multiple incursions. You've watched entire worlds disappear. Millions, maybe billions, gone forever. Then, suddenly, another group of superheroes appears from a different universe. Would you immediately trust them? Probably not. Especially if every previous incursion began with visitors from another reality. From the X-Men's perspective, the Avengers may not look like heroes. They may look like the next disaster. That's why I don't think this battle is about good versus evil. It's about fear, misunderstanding, and survival. Every side believes they're protecting their own world, which makes this conflict far more interesting than a simple hero versus hero fight. Nobody is truly wrong, but everyone could lose. Then we finally get our first look at Cyclops, and honestly, Marvel absolutely nailed his design. The classic blue and yellow suit, the iconic X-belt, the glowing visor. This is probably the closest we've ever been to seeing comic-accurate Cyclops in live action. Fans have been asking for this look for years, and now it's finally here. Cyclops slowly steps forward, His visor begins to glow, and before we even see the optic blast, Marvel already tells us everything we need to know. Scott Summers isn't trying to negotiate anymore. He's preparing for war. Then, another unexpected matchup. Gambit versus Shang-Chi. This is exactly why multiverse stories are so exciting. These are characters that should never have met, yet here they are. Gambit's kinetic cards colliding against the 10 rings, purple energy against golden light. Even if this fight only lasts a minute, it's already one of the coolest matchups in the trailer. But here's something worth thinking about. Marvel never actually shows us who started the fight. That matters, because trailers are designed to manipulate expectations. For all we know, these battles could be happening in completely different contexts. Different timelines, different universes, or even illusions created by someone like Mystique. Marvel has done this before, so I wouldn't assume every fight is exactly what it appears to be. Then, everything suddenly slows down. We see Loki, but not the Loki most people expected. He's not wearing royal Asgardian armor. He's not dressed as the god of stories, but instead, he's wearing his TVA suit, the same outfit from the beginning of the Loki series, which immediately raises another mystery. How can Loki be here? By the end of season 2, he sacrificed everything. He became the living foundation of the multiverse, holding every timeline together. He shouldn't be walking around anymore, at least, not physically. One possible explanation is that this isn't the real Loki. Maybe it's an earlier version, another variant, or perhaps becoming the god of stories allows him to project himself across different realities without ever leaving his throne. Honestly, that sounds exactly like the kind of power Loki would eventually possess. Now look carefully at the TVA identification card he's holding. On the back, there's a tree. Not just any tree, the multiversal tree. The very structure Loki created. At the end of season 2, Marvel didn't include that detail by accident. It's a reminder. Everything happening now is directly connected to Loki's sacrifice. But then comes the most interesting shot. The hand holding the TVA card is wearing a wedding ring. Loki has never worn one, not once. So whose hand is it? Personally, I think Marvel wants us to believe it's Steve Rogers. If that's true, then this scene becomes incredibly important. Remember, Steve stayed in the past after Endgame. He chose a normal life with Peggy Carter for years. Fans debated whether that decision created an alternate timeline. Now, Marvel might finally answer that question. What if Steve's decision had consequences far bigger than anyone realized? Imagine Loki arriving at Steve's house, not to recruit him, not to fight him, but simply to warn him, to tell him the multiverse is collapsing, and somehow Steve's choice became one piece of that puzzle. That would be one of the most emotional reunions the MCU has ever created. After that, the trailer shifts back to the X-Mansion, and this is where everything completely falls apart. Not because of Doctor Doom, not because of an incursion, but because nobody knows who they can trust anymore. Standing near the entrance, we see Reed Richards stretching his arm to stop Captain America's shield. Behind him, Shang-Chi prepares for combat. Herbie is somehow caught right in the middle of the chaos, and Yelena stands at the front ready for whatever comes next. Then, Marvel reveals who they're facing. Mystique, Rebecca Romijn, is finally back, and honestly, she looks fantastic. The comic-inspired white outfit, the shorter hairstyle, the brighter blue skin, it's probably the most comic-accurate version we've ever seen. Then, she reminds everyone why she's one of the most dangerous mutants alive. She catches Yelena's weapon and transforms. Seconds later, there are 2 Yelenas, one real, one fake, and suddenly, everybody has to hesitate, because if Mystique can become anyone, how do you know who you're actually fighting? That's exactly what makes Mystique terrifying, not her strength, not her speed. It's uncertainty. Marvel doesn't stop there. The trailer suddenly slows down, the music changes, and we get a series of emotional moments. Professor Xavier sharing one last look with Magneto. Scott Lang kissing Cassie's forehead. Johnny Storm embracing Sue Storm. These aren't random scenes. These feel like goodbye scenes. Almost like each character knows there's a chance they won't survive. What comes next? That emotional pacing is something Marvel rarely does in trailers. Usually, trailers are designed to build excitement. This one builds anxiety because every goodbye feels permanent. Then, Sue Storm turns toward Shuri. The two exchange the Wakandan salute, a small gesture, but an important one. It tells us that Wakanda and the Fantastic Four are no longer strangers. They're allies, and judging by everything we've seen, they're going to need every ally they can get. Back inside the X-Mansion, the fighting reaches another level. Sam Wilson is knocked across the floor. Gambit dives from the balcony, charging his staff before smashing it into the ground. Purple kinetic energy erupts across the room. Shang-Chi counters. Reed stretches forward. Yelena fights. Everyone is everywhere. This isn't a duel anymore, it's a war. Then, Cyclops finally unleashes his optic blast, and behind him, we notice something very interesting. Sentinels. Some are still standing, others have already been destroyed. That immediately raises another question. Who destroyed them? The X-Men? Doctor Doom? Or did they survive another battle? Before this one even began? Marvel never answers, but they definitely want us to notice. Moments later, Sue Storm creates a massive force field, and I don't think she's trying to stop an enemy. I think she's trying to hold back an incursion itself, trying to protect what little remains of her universe. Meanwhile, Namor flies around the enormous walls of water at incredible speed. Another reminder that while heroes are fighting each other, the real enemy is still the multiverse itself, and that's exactly what makes this trailer so compelling. Every battle feels important, but every battle also feels completely meaningless. Because even if one side wins, an entire universe could still disappear. Then, Marvel gives us what might become the defining image of Avengers Doomsday. Thor, covered in lightning, launching himself straight toward Doctor Doom. This time, there's no hesitation, no second chances. He's aiming to finish the fight before it even begins, and then stops. Doom raises two fingers. Stormbreaker freezes in midair. No explosion, no struggle, no effort. Just silence. That single shot tells us everything. The Avengers aren't facing another Thanos. They're facing something far worse. Just when it feels like all hope is gone, Thor says, one simple line, "We're gonna need a miracle." It's such a short sentence, but after everything we've just seen, it carries enormous weight. Because for the first time, Thor sounds defeated, not afraid, not angry, just out of options. And then we hear a familiar voice, "Hey pal," just two words. But every Marvel fan recognized it instantly. Steve Rogers, Captain America, he's back. Now, this is where things become really interesting. Marvel doesn't show us much, just enough to start another 100 theories. Steve appears inside what looks like the Fantastic Four's spacecraft. Thor immediately turns toward him, and judging by Thor's reaction, this isn't someone he expected to see. If you followed the rumors, this moment has been discussed for months. Some insiders claim Steve has been living peacefully ever since Endgame. Others believe Loki personally visited him to warn him about the coming incursion. If that's true, then Steve didn't come back because he wanted to fight. He came back because there was no other choice. But then another theory appeared, and honestly, it's one of the craziest theories I've heard. What if this isn't our Steve Rogers? What if this is Captain Hydra? For anyone unfamiliar, Captain Hydra comes from Marvel's Secret Empire storyline. It's a version of Steve Rogers, whose entire history was rewritten. Instead of becoming Captain America, he grew up as a Hydra agent. Same face, same abilities, completely different ideology. What's fascinating is that Captain Hydra was even able to lift Mjolnir. At first, fans thought that completely broke Marvel's own rules, but later the comics explained that Odin's enchantment had been altered, meaning worthiness was no longer the deciding factor. So, could Marvel actually bring Captain Hydra into the MCU? Personally, I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. Because from a storytelling perspective, bringing back the real Steve Rogers already creates a huge emotional moment. Introducing Captain Hydra at the same time could immediately distract from Doctor Doom, and right now, Marvel probably needs one central villain, not two. Still, Marvel knows exactly how to manipulate expectations. They've fooled us before with movies like Infinity War, Endgame, No Way Home, and Deadpool and Wolverine. Their trailers are often designed to show us just enough while hiding the things that actually matter. So even if this really looks like Steve Rogers, I wouldn't assume everything is exactly what it seems. And finally, the trailer gives us one last mystery, Doctor Doom's mask. At first glance, it looks almost identical to the one we saw in the Fantastic Four post-credit scene. But if you compare them carefully, there are actually some noticeable differences in the shape, the details, and the overall design. And those small differences have already created another interesting rumor. According to several leaks, Doctor Doom may not be working alone. He could have an entire group of followers, sometimes referred to as his coven, with members wearing similar masks to hide their identities. And if that's true, then the mysterious figure from the Fantastic Four post-credit scene might not have been Doctor Doom at all. But here's where the theory gets completely wild. What if that mysterious figure was actually Wanda Maximoff? Think about it. Wanda has already lost Billy and Tommy, and so much of her story has been driven by the desire to get her children back. Dr. Doom understands loss better than almost anyone. So if Doom offered Wanda a chance to reunite with her children, would she really say no? Honestly, I'm not sure she would. And then we have Franklin Richards. In Marvel Comics, Franklin is one of the most powerful children in existence. His abilities can reach the point where he can create, alter, or even reshape reality itself. So if Doctor Doom is planning to rebuild or control reality after the multiverse collapses, Franklin could become one of the most valuable people in the entire multiverse. And suddenly, all of these theories start connecting. Of course, none of this is confirmed. It's all speculation. But that's exactly what makes a trailer like this so much fun. Marvel gives us just enough information to start asking questions, while keeping the real answers hidden until the movie comes out. And one thing is already clear. Avengers Doomsday feels very different from Infinity War or Endgame. This isn't simply a story about heroes fighting one villain. This is about entire universes colliding, heroes being forced to choose who survives, and impossible decisions that nobody wants to make. And that's probably what makes Doctor Doom so dangerous. He doesn't necessarily have to destroy the multiverse himself. He may simply force everyone else to make the impossible choices for him. If Marvel can actually deliver everything this trailer is promising, we might be looking at one of the biggest MCU movies since Endgame. But now I want to hear what you think. Who do you think is being hidden in that Avengers meeting? Is that really Steve Rogers? Or could Marvel be setting up something completely different? And more importantly, what do you think Doctor Doom's real plan is? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Special Player. I'll see you in the next one.